When Bella the Labrador gave birth to 15 puppies, her family thought it was a miracle. But soon, strange cries and unusual features raised suspicion. A vet's chilling discovery revealed the truth. These weren't puppies at all. What he uncovered left the entire town stunned beyond belief. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The night was still when Sarah noticed her Labrador, Bella, pacing nervously around the living room. Her belly had grown large over the past weeks, and the family knew the time had come. Sarah quickly laid out blankets while her husband, James, grabbed towels, preparing for what they thought would be a small litter. Within minutes, Bella lay down, breathing heavily, eyes fixed on Sarah as if seeking reassurance. One by one, the puppies began to arrive. First came 3, then 5, then 8. Sarah's hands trembled as she gently placed each newborn against their mother. But Bella wasn't finished, not even close. By the time midnight passed, the impossible had happened. 15 tiny bodies wriggled beside Bella, their squeaks filling the room like a chorus. James froze, staring in disbelief. 15, he whispered, his voice shaking between awe and concern. Neighbors, drawn by the commotion, gathered at the doorway, gasping at the sight. Everyone called it a miracle no one had ever seen. A litter so large, so full of life. Cameras clicked, voices buzzed, but through it all, Bella simply nuzzled her babies, her eyes heavy yet proud. To the family, it felt like a blessing beyond imagination. At first, everything seemed perfect. The 15 newborns nursed eagerly, their tiny bodies pressed close to Bella's warmth. The family marveled at the sight, snapping pictures and sharing the miracle litter with friends. But as days passed, subtle oddities began to creep into Sarah's mind, like puzzle pieces that didn't quite fit. Unlike normal puppies, these little ones never seemed to rest. Even when full, they squirmed constantly, their small bodies twitching as if charged with energy. Their cries were sharper, almost shrill, echoing through the house long after the night had fallen. James tried to laugh it off, but Sarah couldn't shake the unease that grew each passing day. It wasn't just their cries. Their tiny claws seemed unusually sharp, scratching against the blankets more aggressively than expected. Their eyes, too, began to open earlier than normal, glimmering with an intensity that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. "They don't look like regular puppies," she whispered one evening, but James waved her off. Bella, however, seemed restless. She shifted constantly, often pulling away from the pile instead of nestling in. Sarah watched her with a growing pit in her stomach. The family saw a miracle, but Bella's uneasy gaze hinted at something far more unsettling. By the second week, Bella's behavior grew more unusual. Instead of lying peacefully with her litter, she often paced circles around them, ears pinned back, tail low. When she did settle, it wasn't for long. She would nudge certain pups away with her nose, refusing to let them feed. Sarah frowned, confused. What kind of mother rejected her own babies? At night, the tension only deepened. Bella would bark suddenly, a low, throaty warning, her eyes fixed on the shadows. Sometimes she positioned herself between the doorway and the pile of pups, as if shielding the family from them rather than protecting them from danger. James tried to laugh it off. "She's just tired from such a huge litter," but Sarah could see the fear in Bella's eyes. Even more unsettling, Bella growled when strangers leaned too close to the newborns. It wasn't a protective growl. It was different, sharp and uncertain, as though she wasn't sure what she was guarding. Sarah lay awake one night, listening to Bella's restless pacing on the floorboards. For the first time since the birth, she felt a knot of dread form in her chest. Something wasn't right, and Bella knew it. By the third week, Sarah's worries could no longer be ignored. Bella had nearly stopped feeding half the litter, her body trembling whenever they pressed too close. Sarah bundled the tiny pups into a basket, draping them in towels, and drove straight to the veterinary clinic with James by her side. The vet, Dr. Collins, greeted them warmly, expecting a routine post-birth checkup. But his expression quickly changed as he lifted the first puppy into his hands. He turned it gently, eyes narrowing. The claws were sharper than he expected, the teeth already beginning to break through unusually early. He frowned, scribbling notes as he moved on to the next. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as Dr. Collins examined each one. He pressed stethoscopes to tiny chests, shone lights into eyes, and traced his fingers along small bones. His brow furrowed deeper with each pup, and Sarah's anxiety mounted. James tried to stay calm, but his hands gripped the edge of the table. Finally, Dr. Collins set down the 15th pup and looked at them gravely. "These aren't behaving like normal dogs," he said slowly. His voice was calm, but his eyes carried weight. "I'll need further tests before I can tell you exactly what we're dealing with." 2 days later, Sarah's phone rang. The caller ID flashed Dr. Collins. Her stomach tightened as she answered. His voice was firm, urgent. "You need to come to the clinic immediately. I have the results." Sarah and James exchanged worried glances, bundled the basket of pups, and drove in silence. At the clinic, Dr. Collins led them into his office, closing the door behind them. He laid out papers, x-rays, and notes, his expression unreadable. Finally, he looked up. "I know this will be difficult to hear," he began slowly, "but these are not ordinary puppies." Sarah's breath caught. James stiffened beside her. The vet explained that the bone structure and early development didn't match dogs at all. Their teeth were too sharp, their cries too unusual, their instincts too wild. "These aren't Labrador pups," Dr. Collins said, lowering his voice. "They're hybrids, closer to wild foxes or wolves than any domestic breed." Sarah's mind spun. How could Bella, their loyal Labrador, have birthed something so different? But Dr. Collins shook his head gently. "She didn't," he clarified. "Somehow, these newborns ended up with her during labor. She took them in, but they're not hers." News spread quickly through the small town. "Family dog gives birth to pups that aren't hers," one headline read, sparking both fascination and fear. Neighbors stopped by the house, some out of curiosity, others whispering rumors that made Sarah's skin crawl. The miraculous litter had become the center of controversy overnight. Animal control officers visited, demanding answers. Some argued the pups should be taken away immediately, warning that raising wild hybrids could be dangerous. Others insisted Bella had chosen them, that she was their protector now, and separating them would be cruel. The debate divided the community, leaving Sarah and James caught in the middle. Through it all, Bella remained steadfast. Though restless, she continued to guard the litter, growling softly at anyone who approached too quickly. Sarah watched with a heavy heart, torn between fear and admiration. The world saw confusion and scandal, but Bella seemed to see only her duty as a mother. Even if they weren't truly hers, she would not abandon them. In the days that followed, experts pieced the mystery together. Tracks near the woods suggested a wild mother, likely a fox or wolf, had abandoned her newborns close to the family's yard. By sheer coincidence, Bella had gone into labor that same night. When she found the helpless babies, her instincts took over. She gathered them as her own, nursing them alongside her true litter until no one could tell the difference. Sarah and James listened in awe as Dr. Collins explained. What the community saw as shocking, nature revealed as miraculous. Bella hadn't been confused, she had been compassionate. To her, species didn't matter. Vulnerable young needed care, and she gave it without question. The family decided to work with wildlife experts, ensuring the hybrids would grow safely before being released into sanctuaries. Bella remained their guardian until the very end, watching with devoted eyes. Sarah often whispered to friends, "She taught us something no book could. Love doesn't draw lines. A true mother protects, no matter what." And with that, Bella's story became a legend in the town, an unforgettable reminder of love beyond boundaries.